Goya, of course, it's a film that seems to be more lyrical than many of your other films. And B, you choose to cast somebody like Mithun Chakraborty, who doesn't really, goes against the grain of your normal casting that you've done for your films. What were the reasons?
I'm glad that you found lyricism in it. Perhaps it is in the whole climate where I did the shooting. And maybe lyricism could surface on the faces of the people whom I ran into every time I was shooting. It was in a Santol Village, the village of the tribals, and that was it. I didn't make any special effort to inculcate lyricism into it. It was very much there, perhaps so. Perhaps I couldn't escape it. That could be one reason. And it was possibly also there in Bhuvansham, which was made years earlier, a kind of lyricism. The lyricism doesn't belong only to the landscapes alone. It is in the behavior patterns of the people, in the relationship of the people, which I also tried to bring in my later films, where I used human beings, the faces, this is all. But I found a kind of lyrical aspect in the kind of relationship that I tried to build up. About Mithun Chakraborty, well, he was not known at that time. I met him, I wouldn't say I met him, I saw him from a distance in Pune, in one of the convocation, when he was to get a diploma. So we were all invited guests there, and we were sitting there. I remember I was sitting between, on one side was Kazi, on the other side was Rishikesh Mukherjee. I found one young man teasing the girl students. The way he was teasing the girl students, that impressed me very much. The one should have been absolutely shameless to be able to do that in presence of celebrities and quarter celebrities like me. So I asked Al-Kazi, who is that boy? And he asked me, don't you know him? He's a Bengali. I said, do I have to know all the Bengalis? Oh, no, he is a good actor. He's getting his diploma now. That's all I know about him. And he also told me the name. And then after 2 years, when I decided to make a film, this film, Mriga, I was thinking of somebody who could look like a man, because most of the actors on Indian scene, they don't, most of them look like, they're very effeminate in a way. So I was looking for a rugged he-man. So suddenly I remembered the face of this young man, and I was impressed by his shamelessness, because acting, for an actor to be a good actor, it is very important to be shameless. So I thought of him. I sent a long telegram to my cameraman Mahajan. I said, catch hold of a young man who got his diploma in such a year, and who is perhaps a Bengali, tall, dark, well built, name starts perhaps with M. Catch hold of him and ask him to send a photograph to me. And in 3 days I got the photograph, which means Mahajan immediately caught him somewhere in Bombay. And then after 5 days he came to me. I was very much impressed by him, but I was a little worried about his hairdo. And he was very, very fond of the way he did his hairdo. And when he started talking to me, he tried to impress me by saying that he danced with Helen. And I suffered it for 3 times. But on the 4th time when he said it, I said, next time you say it, I will throw you out. And then the day before we started shooting, I called an Adivasi barber and got his hair cut. And he was completely heartbroken. But that was how we started. So it is no problem for me to have him, because I saw him, I found him to be good enough for me. I didn't care to know how good he is as an actor, but I had a hunch that he would do very well, for the simple reason that he could tease the girls the way he did. That was very impressive.
You know, I'm take you somewhere else this time to the film that you made in Andhra Pradesh, Oka Uri Kotha.
Yes.
I find it a little strange that you take a Premchand story which is supposed to be set in the Hindi heartland.
Yeah.
You are a Bengali director and you choose to make it in Telugu.
Yes.
What were the reasons that compelled you to do that?
Well, firstly, I had to make the film in Telugu because the producer came to me and asked me to make a film the way I want to make it. And he said the only condition is that you have to make it in Telugu. So that was the condition that was imposed on me. And this is, Premchand is one of my most favorite writers. I think he is the most important writer of this century. And all that one has to do about Premchand is to, when one reads his story, one has to invest his stories with contemporary sensibilities. Otherwise the stories look and sound very simplistic. That was it. And that is what you have to do. So, and this is his last, Kafan is his last story. So I wanted to make it. And what did I do? I knew that he had a UP village as his model. Then when I wrote the script, I had a Bengali village in view. And then I transplanted the whole thing in Telangana. You know, and because I could see that there was no problem, because the main focus was on exploitation, And exploitation is the same everywhere. It is not dominated by the geographical features. So it's not a problem for me. And I could realize even before that, that there cannot be two stories of poverty and exploitation. There cannot be two different cultures. It is the same everywhere. So that's why I could make it there. And I had no problem except for the language. And the language is very important. I didn't know one, even now, I don't know one single word of Telugu, but I made it. But it was a big problem because I had to depend on my writers, I mean, who translated the lines. So that was a problem, and I had always a sense of fear, what is happening now. And that also helped me to a large extent. I can give you one instance. There is a sequence where the main character, the Ghishu, the old man, he says that about him, someone, a villager says that he eats and chews. He chews and eats and sleeps like a buffalo. That is a very, common, a popular expression in Bengali. Mosher moto boshe boshe khaye, chiboy, ghumoy. And it was translated the same way by a very good playwright based in Hyderabad. Then what did I do? Before going to the village where I was to shoot, I got in touch with Sundaraya, one of the Communist Party leaders, and who knows absolutely everything about Telangana. And I asked him to get me in touch with somebody who knows something about this village. So someone who had no formal education as such, but a Communist Party member, he was with me all the time. And every time I used to shoot a sequence, I used to get the lines read out to him by my Telugu assistant. And when this line was read out to him, he got furious. He said, "What do you say? Now I can see that you come from the city." He was so furious, he said it. And I said, "Why?" I said, "Who says buffalo is lazy? Buffalo is not lazy. Buffalo is our life. Only the city people think that the buffaloes are lazy." And that was a revelation to me. And I can tell you very honestly, had I made this film in Bengali, I would not have gone to anyone else. I would have straightway gone to a village. I would have a good actor. I would have used a certain dialect, and he would have used the same line, and you, the critic, you would have said, "Ah, he has done a very good job." But this is, since I didn't know the language, I was very careful, very cautious. I got every line checked and double checked by a man who knows absolutely everything about the village. And that was how I could realize how we people with our urban sensibilities, urban values, we thrust ourselves on the rural people. And we proved to be false by that. And that was something great. I can give you another instance. We have another expression which I think you have in Hindi too. The man says, I am cleverer than you. We have a Bengali expression, Tumi cholo dale dale, ami choli pataye pataye. Dal dal pat pat, something like this. If you walk on the branches of a tree, I walk on the leaves. And the translator, I mean the Hyderabad-based playwright, he said that I can give you the translation, exact translation, but we don't have any proverb like this. But it's very good. When it was read out to this man, the unlettered man, he said, he was amused. He said, oh, it's very good. And then very apologetically he told me, we have another expression, perhaps it means the same thing. I said, could you say it? And he said it. And it was sheer poetry. And he told me, he assured me that every villager knows this line. It says in English, if you walk on the clouds, I walk on the stars. Beautiful. And that was what we actually used. So, you know, you are walking into unknown region, but then if you can make a film like that, you all, at every moment you have a sense of fear. You never know what is going to happen. But then you also, you can get your inspiration checked and double checked by the people around you, by the local people. That way you come closer to reality, which you achieve in documentaries, not in feature films.
Let's come to Khandar, which is, you know, a film that again is a certain kind of guilt, a guilt of somebody who comes, intrudes into a certain situation and then goes away.
Yes.
You know, disturbing memories, disturbing the situation. I almost begin to feel almost as if, again, you're talking about a filmmaker, because here you have a photographer. It's almost like as if a filmmaker would come, a documentary filmmaker, disturb a reality, and then unable to do anything goes away.
Well, in a way, I feel that the photographer, in the original story, he was an angler. But I made him a photographer, because I made him a photographer and I told the writer, Premendra Mitra, a very important, very eminent poet in the post-Tagorean period. Even during Tagore's time, he was a very important man, and he also wrote stories. I told him that I am going to make it contemporary. You wrote this story before the war, and this story has elements of pre-war Bengali romanticism, but I want to make it valid for the contemporary period. So I made him into a photographer. So to be very frank with you, he is my alter ego. The photographer is my alter ego. He always looks through the camera, through the lenses. That was it. And then when going there, you know, he was to capture the photographer's paradise, but then he walked into the reality. He walked into a new fantasy. And now normally what we do, we walk away from the reality and go and take cover under fantasy, you know, behind fantasy. But here, when in 3 days' time, he walked away from the fantasy because it proved very dangerous for him, and he walked back into he escaped into his own reality. That was it. And this is also, to my mind, a continuation of what I have been doing since Ek Din Pratidin in 1979. You know, the same thing, human situations in complete disarray, human situations in disarray, the confusions, contradictions and all. And before that I was shouting a little too much, but I don't shout that much. After that I didn't shout that much from Ek Din Pratidin. So I quietly tried to walk into the innermost core of the human psyche. And I have been trying to capture the intricacies, the confusions, the contradictions. These are the things which, and the mysteries of human relationship. This is what I have been doing.